Hi everyone, this is Sam with Wine News in 5. Before I get to global news, some site news. We are very excited to announce that the latest 5th edition of the Oxford Companion to Wine is now online. Members of JancysRobinson.com have exclusive access to the online version of this essential and huge source of wine knowledge, edited by our very own Julia Harding, MW, and Tara Q. Thomas. Meanwhile, our team continued Burgundy 2023 coverage this week with 4 articles worth of alphabetized tasting notes. Also continuing this week was the re-release of Vintner's Tales. Yesterday we posted a 1998 episode featuring Carla Carlisle, the Mississippi-born owner and operator of the UK's first vineyard restaurant, Wyken Vineyards. It's a lovely interview that is made better by the fact that Carlisle does the whole thing with a chicken sitting on her lap. On to the news. Today, I'll discuss a new State of the U.S. Wine Industry report from Silicon Valley Bank, the TTB's ingredient labeling proposal for alcoholic beverages, Trump's first week in office, declining champagne sales, and some good news for lovers of Jura wine. First up, the State of the U.S. Wine Industry report. So every January, Silicon Valley Bank, SVB, releases a State of the U.S. Wine Industry report. This year's report was released this past Wednesday, and as you might expect, there are very few bright spots. While the numbers aren't final, the report estimates that the volume of wine consumed in the US in 2024 decreased by 2.4% and predicts that the rate will continue to fall in 2025. The report is very clear that this is not a temporary dip, but a market correction. The last market correction the US experienced was from 1986 to 1994. Two of the contributing factors were a resurgence of anti-alcohol campaigns and a change in dominant cohorts, factors at play in this correction as well. Currently, millennials and Gen Z are replacing baby boomers. Back in the late 1980s, it was the greatest generation being replaced by boomers. Changing demographics are accompanied by changes in taste. As far as which wine categories are affected, it's a pretty large swath. All price points saw declines in retail sales in 2023 and 2024, but the $12 to $30 range was the least impacted. Most every varietal wine saw declines, but Prosecco grew by 2.7% and white blends grew by 3.9%. As the report points out, these categories are generally less expensive, more appealing to entry-level consumers, and generally lower in alcohol than red wines. The key takeaway, in my opinion, is that if the wine industry is to continue to be financially successful, it needs to abandon the notion that eventually younger generations will come around and instead start catering to millennials and Gen Z. The report states, the downturn in demand is reversible if the industry collaborates on solutions to target 30 to 45-year-old consumers. On to the TTB's proposal on ingredient labeling for alcoholic beverages. On January 17th, the U.S. Tax and Trade Bureau, TTB, proposed that labeling on wine, spirits, and malt beverages be required to state allergens, serving size and number of servings per container, fluid ounces of pure ethyl alcohol per serving, calories per serving, and grams per serving of carbohydrates, fat, and protein. As Julia points out in What's in Wine, which is a story about ingredient labeling on wine, this has been in the works for a long time. The detractors point out that wine can change in alcohol content and possible additions every year depending on fruit quality and condition, which would require new labels every year. That's not generally something spirits or malt beverages have to worry about. Because of this, the Wine Institute has already requested that wineries be able to use QR codes for this information. As much as it would be a headache for wineries, I think it's an important move. I think many people assume wine has a bunch of additions. Suddenly, they'd see that wine from fastidious producers really does just contain fermented grape juice. They'd be able to compare the calories in buzzballs to the calories in wine, and I honestly think it would make the category more appealing to Gen Z and millennials. Whether you disagree with me or are in complete agreement, I encourage you to comment on the proposal. The comment period will end on April 17th. On to Trump's first week in office. As promised, Trump's first week in office included a landslide of executive orders. He began the process of withdrawing the U.S. from the WHO, withdrew the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement, shut down legal immigration pipelines, ordered a federal hiring freeze. But what he didn't do was implement tariffs. He threatened a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico starting on February 1st, along with duties on China and the EU, but we'll see what happens. Next, declining champagne sales. On January 18th, Comité Champagne confirmed the declines reported on by Wine Searcher on December 30th. Volume sales are down 9.2% from 2023. Domestic sales have fallen 7.2% and exports have fallen 10.8%. Maxime Toubar, president of the Champagne Wine Growers and co-president of the Comité Champagne, was quoted as saying, "Champagne is a true barometer of consumer mood, and this is no time for celebration. With inflation, conflicts around the world, economic uncertainty, and a political wait-and-see attitude in some of Champagne's biggest markets, such as France and the United States of America." Finally, the legalization of the Clavlin in the US. In this newscast on January 11th, I reported on new packaging sizes for wine and spirits in the US. Until I read a piece by Jura wine expert Wink Lorch on Wine Searcher, I didn't make the leap that one of those sizes, the 620 milliliter size, is exactly the size of the Clavlin bottle used for Jura's Vengeance. While Clavlins can be found on some US shelves, they're not strictly legal, and importing them has been a massive headache. The allowance of the new packaging sizes should clear that up. And if you want to know more about what makes Vengeance so special, you should read Wink's entry in the Oxford Companion to Wine. That's all for this episode of the Wine News. If you enjoyed this newscast and you would like to see it continue, please subscribe to jancesrobinson.com. And if you have breaking news in your area, please email news@jancesrobinson.com. Thanks.